Author and London University professor Sarah Churchwell has a new book out. It's called Behold America, A History of America First and the American Dream. Both phrases that will be familiar to anyone who follows politics. And when she came here to our Westminster studio, I put it to her that she was painting a rather frightening vision of the United States, one of Americans doing Nazi salutes and mixing the stars and stripes with the swastika.
Absolutely. Well, that's one of the things that America First was associated with in the 1930s. And so this is just a history of the way that this phrase has been used in the last century. And those photos are indeed frightening. They were frightening at the time. They were spread all over the American papers, and you know, people were concerned about it for pretty obvious reasons.
So what are you saying? You're saying that when Donald Trump uses the phrase America First, which some people would say is sort of prima facie patriotism, there's actually something more sinister behind it.
That's exactly it. There's a long and dark history associated with this phrase. It was very closely associated with the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s, which was the decade when the Klan was the most powerful in America, and it really infiltrated American politics. Trump clearly knows what this phrase meant, that it was associated with the Klan, that it was associated with ideas about xenophobia and nativism. When David Duke, who is the head of the Klan right now, when he endorsed Trump's campaign for presidency, he said, "Trump stands for what I stand for. He stands for America First." In the 1990s, when Pat Buchanan ran for president, he ran on a campaign of America First. Trump toyed with the idea of joining Buchanan's party, and then when he distanced himself, he told the New York Times, it's on the record in the 90s, he said, "I don't want to have anything to do with that party. It's associated with the Klan. Buchanan's a Hitler lover." And he's clearly trying to curry favor with the right-wing wacko vote, Trump said at the time. And he said, "I don't want to have anything to do with it." He does know what it means, and it's a dog whistle.
You put out a flyer to go with the book, and in this you have a report saying that in 1927, amongst a number of people arrested after a Ku Klux Klan riot was one Fred C. Trump.
Indeed, the C stood for Christ. It was, that was Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump, was arrested, as you say, in 1927. And that's exactly when the Klan was using the phrase America First. And Fred Trump was arrested with 5 self-identified Klansmen and arraigned as part of this Klan rally. Now, we don't know that Fred Trump was a member of the Klan, but there were 20,000 people at that parade. 6 were arrested, 5 were Klansmen, the other one was Fred Trump.
But, I mean, when you talk about America First in the way Trump's talked about it, he's talked about it in terms of trade competition and all the rest. But you're saying that there's an undertow of racism.
Absolutely, and xenophobia, nativism. It was an anti-immigrant sentiment,
including blacks.
Absolutely, very much including blacks. But it was strongly associated with an idea called Nordicism, which may sound like I'm bringing up ancient history, but Nordicism was used
like Aryanism.
It was exactly like Aryanism. It was used in exactly the same way to suggest that people from Northern Europe were biologically superior to people from anywhere else in the world. Nordicism was associated with America First. And it seems to me, and it's still used, if you look on Daily Stormer and those kinds of websites, the neo-Nazi websites, they still debate Nordicism. Well, earlier this year, you may recall, Trump said he didn't want immigrants from Africa or Haiti. He wanted more people from Norway. And a lot of people heard that and said, why Norway? It seems so arbitrary. Like, they got that it was very white and very blonde. But why not Sweden? Why not Finland? Well, there was a reason, and that reason is that Nordicism is a theory that is being espoused on the far right.
Why do you link America First, which, as you say, is sinister, with the American Dream, which is a sort of often seen as a universal good, if you like?
Yeah, well, because I think it was important not to only tell this very dark story about America, but to recognize that America First emerged as part of an argument that America was having with itself, as it always does, about what it stands for, about what its identity was going to be. And it turns out that America First and the American Dream as phrases emerged at exactly the same time. And that was why...
Are they competitors?
In a sense. And by the time that America was arguing about whether to enter the Second World War, they were. They were on opposite sides of the argument. And you find, you know, columnists debating, saying, you know, we have to be against these America Firsters in the name of the American dream of democracy, the American dream of equality, the American dream of justice, because they used American dream to mean something quite different from what we use it now to mean.
And you're an American in London.
I am.
Could you ever go home?
I go home all the time. It's my home.
Yeah,
my family's still there. Could I live there? I wouldn't want to live there under Trump, not personally, no. I'm very worried about what's happening there, but of course I'd go home. It's home. You know, you can't give up on it. You've got to go back and fight for what you believe in.
And where do you think it's heading?
Well, that's a very big question. I think we'll know a lot more after the midterms, but I certainly hope it's heading for a realignment, shall we say, a readjustment. I mean, I personally think Trump's doing an enormous amount of damage, and I think that America needs to reassert those values that we were just talking about.